This June, I'll be gathering a small circle of 5 or 6 folks who feel called to journey through an entire solar cycle, consciously deepening into relationship with their own mortality. Rooted in the question, what becomes truly essential when we make death an ally? This space offers a slow, soulful environment for a real reckoning, inviting a fierce, loving embrace of grief, fear, and praise. It's an opportunity to cultivate a steady devotion to what is most alive. More than just a program, it's an invitation to step into the life-giving heart of impermanence, supported by the companionship of a small, committed group. This virtual group initiation is a year-long deep dive into the profound mysteries of impermanence. Together we will tend to unfinished business, deepen our intimacy with life, and close the cycle with a ritual death and rebirth. Each month will include 2 group sessions and at least 1 individual session with me, creating space for both collective insight and personal integration. I trust that this container will serve as a truly potent threshold, clarifying, humbling, and transformative, and I am so stoked to walk it with those who feel the call. I'll be sharing more details in the coming weeks, but if you feel a draw already, reach out for an insight call and we can see if this journey is meant for you. I'm also hosting another virtual event on May 31st called Rise and Revitalize, an online gathering to enliven and embrace the wild bloom of becoming. Episode 34 of this project featured one of our guest speakers for the event, Azra Bertrand, and I'm excited to share that today's guest will also be joining us as a guest speaker for the event. In addition, I've confirmed 2 other amazing speakers, both women, who will also be part of the project in the next couple of weeks. And you can find out more information about all of the speakers on the Eventbrite page, which is linked in the show notes. And lastly, I've just launched a new Substack publication called Hearthwoven. I shared the introductory essay this week, reflecting on the rich and multi-layered mythic meaning behind the name and why it feels significant to me. Hearthwoven will be a home for essays, poetry, podcast episodes, and bonus content, including expanded conversations from this project eventually. I would love to have you there as an early subscriber. For now, all the offerings are freely available, with the likelihood of a modest paywall in the future to help sustain the creative energy behind all that I create. Now, let's introduce today's conversation. Welcome to Wild Heart Revival, a gathering place for heartfelt conversations and stories as pathways of renewal and revival. I'm your host, Tay Tayari, and today's guest is Zoe Kian. Zoe joins us for a journey into the resonant spaces between silence, sound, and soul. We reflect on Goethe's insight that we see in the world what we carry in our hearts, and explore how coherence, power, and embodied expression align with authenticity. Zoe speaks to the beauty that arises from stillness and invites us into a deeper, whole-body listening. We discuss ensouled language, where words become vessels of intention and creation and connection, and how generative emptiness is the source of radical aliveness. Zoe shares insights on paradox, body wisdom, and the alchemy of rage, reminding us that we are instruments of resonance, each attuned to the mystery at the core of our being, if we so choose. Zoe Kian Santos, aka Zoe, is an embodiment guide, vocal empowerment coach, and world-traveling musician dedicated to helping individuals cultivate somatic awareness and awaken to their authentic raw expression. Born in Brazil and raised on the island of Bali, Zoe channels the ancestral pulse of his roots into devotional soundscapes, soulful offerings that stir transformation, awaken rapture, and invoke reverence for the elemental forces that move us all. Alongside his musical path, he has also cultivated a deeply rooted foundation in the healing and embodiment arts. He is a licensed massage therapist, certified personal trainer, and biomechanics specialist with advanced training in Lomi Lomi and neurokinetic release. As an embodiment guide and vocal empowerment coach, Zoe skillfully integrates structural alignment, functional strength, and somatic awareness to help others deepen their connection to body, breath, and voice. Through private sessions, global workshops, and immersive experiences, he empowers individuals to fully inhabit their bodies, unleash authentic self-expression, and cultivate daily rituals that support true inner vitality. If you're new to the show, welcome. You may like to know that I'm a threshold counselor with an online practice devoted to supporting wanderers, and edgewalkers. I offer individual, couples, and group counsel, as well as guidance around death and dying. If you'd like to learn more, you'll find a link to my website in the show notes. I also offer free insight calls, risk-free spaces where we can connect, explore our alignment, and see if we're a good fit to walk alongside each other through a pivotal time in your life. I'm always open to meaningful connections, whether for guidance, curiosity, collaboration, or simply to share in a heartfelt conversation. If you feel called, feel free to reach out anytime. And if you haven't yet, I invite you to subscribe to Wild Heart Revival on your favorite podcast platforms and join us on YouTube as well. Your likes, comments, ratings, and shares are deeply appreciated, and they play an essential role in supporting the organic growth of these heartfelt conversations and stories. Now, let's gather our presence and power as we establish radical resonance together and warmly welcome our guest for today, Zoe Kian. All right, brother.
Yes.
So, as I was mentioning before we started the recording, I have this writing practice where if I don't know what to write, but I want to, I go into this document of quotes and I wait till one jumps out at me, and then I use that as a kind of doorway into a creative writing practice. And so I did that this morning, and like I was telling you before, I thought what came through was so relevant to our budding relationship, and it just felt like I wanted to bring it forth into this conversation today. So that's what we're going to start with. It's just a few paragraphs, and then we'll move forward with that.
I love it.
All right. So the quote was from Goethe. He says, "A man sees in the world what he carries in his heart." And I wrote, "I've come to sense again and again that the way I see the world is inseparable from the felt sense of my being. When my heart is softened and attuned, when it courageously leans toward the sacred, the unseen, the wild intelligence that breathes beneath and beyond the surface of things, something luminous stirs. The ordinary glows. The world responds. I don't just look at the world, I look into it, with it. I meet the world from the inside out. Myth rises from the mundane, soul shimmers in the soil, and kinship pulses through the cracks. This way of seeing affirms something I've known quietly all along. The inner terrain shapes the outer encounter. The grief I've metabolized, the beauty I've dared to tend, the truths I've spoken, and even when my own voice trembled, all of it composts into how the livingness of the world and I meet one another. It's why longing has become a kind of compass for me, why I can recognize the ache for belonging in another's eyes before a word is spoken. I carry depth, and so I'm drawn to the depths in others. I carry a heart, both garden and wilderness, cultivated and feral. And so I've come to see the hidden flowering and the fierce sacred tangle in those I accompany.
Mhm.
This idea that a man sees in the world what he carries in his heart is not some fixed truth to be grasped. For me, it's a living orientation. It's a devotional dance. It's a way to walk through uncertainty with eyes wide and heart ajar. It asks of me to have a humble tenderness, a kind of radical responsibility to stay receptive and responsive even when the machine tears at my vulnerable carnal self. Because how I perceive becomes how I relate. How I relate becomes how I create. And how I create becomes the offering that I give back to the world that I love more than I can say, like a river returning rain to the sky.
Wow, so beautiful, brother.
Thanks, man.
Mm.
So I'm just so curious to know what stirs in you from that.
Mm. First is this invocation of the spaciousness and the silent pause to fully receive is what is present for me and alive. And it invites an opportunity to feel into the space in between. I feel the void alive in me now, just by you sharing that.
Mm.
The cyclical nature of talking to all these different parts that can be held in this one space of the spoken word right there just allows me to sink deeper into my beingness. So I just want to give thanks and gratitude to that.
Mm.
And I feel a wholeness. I feel a wholeness that can be touched upon when we allow ourselves to get out of the way and just fully be in the receptive, responsive nature that this poetry that you just spoke and uttered really invoked in me. So it's a deeper sense of receptivity to the space that is now created, that we are opening this
Mm.
dialogue, conversation from the sense of spaciousness, this element
Mm.
of music, of laughter, of life. Space is one of the elements of music that we talk about that is often overlooked, but it's how am I playing my instrument and singing my song attuned to the outside and the inside, going on the inside of the inside, and still having the awareness of all these moving pieces while I am singing and playing my instrument. And so that's what it invokes in me. And it's a beautiful dance that you just spoke to. I think it's a dance. I felt my body was like pulsating in this dance as you were
Mm.
speaking words. It was a real allowance. How does it naturally want to flow through me without any reservation? Also, because when
Mm.
we tend to all these sides, it's this natural fluidity starts to come out, and I could sense that too. This beautiful saying of like everything that is truly beautiful is born from silence, born from the stillness. And so here we are. I'm ready to invoke the beauty way with you, brother, in the
Mm.
receptive words. That
Mm.
natural, fluid, supple, and responsive.
Mm.
And yeah, mm,
Mm.
that's
Mm.
this
Yeah.
this guttural
Mm.
utterance. Yeah.
Mm. I love what that evoked in you, man. Yeah. Yeah, there's something about ensouling our language that you, especially when it's spoken, but even
Yeah.
reading ensouled language, it's
Mm,
so much more than the parts, right? It's so much
totally.
more than the words, than the symbols. There's an interior depth. And
Yeah.
of course, then when it's spoken out loud, especially by the person who wrote it, you get to feel that interior through the vocal cords, through the intentional emanation of sound.
Mm,
And it's something that is an art. I think it's natural. And some people put more intention and care into it than others, and you can feel that. Maybe
right.
some are more naturally gifted with it, but I think it's so vitally important, especially in these times when you have um, anyone can write anything and blast it out to anyone at any time. And they can use AI to just write up some random thing, and send it out into the world. In a time when there's, it's the information age, we're just in this like deepening, quickening sea of information. And so much of it that I have seen over the years as the internet's been developing with us, is it feels kind of lifeless. Not all of it. Some people really have that. A lot of it feels lifeless. And so I find myself needing to turn to the books and the teachers that have taken the time to craft their writing and ensoul their language in order to get that sustenance. It feels so important. But also over time, turning to the people like you yourself, where I can come and I can sit and I can open and I can dialogue with my voice, and I can feel that sustenance being shaped between us.
Amen. Aho. Yeah, it's such a once it's speaking back to the piece of the dance that we are dancers of, and we're learning to become these dancing masters that can hold all these pieces, and it's a journey. And with that said, we need each other. This is that opportunity. It's this opportunity to reflect back to you, my brother, what I'm feeling inside of me, have you witnessing me, witness you. And this feels like such medicine for this time. It's presence, it's the fullness of presence. You talk to different faces of Eros there within, and fullness of presence as the first gateway. It invokes me now to be with you. It's our words. Can we really imbue them with the sense of fullness of presence? And just starting from this place of like, I don't know what is to come. It really speaks to a beautiful teacher of mine, Bobby McFerrin, who does circle singing. It's a very unique form of bringing collective voices into the space. And he says, come into the circle empty and leave full. And it's really come in with no, as people, we have so many ideas of what we're going to do, how we're going to orchestrate the circle. No, please invite the emptiness, come empty and leave full. And so this orientation towards a more of the emptiness and like, oh, can I just let things simmer, let things settle and see what wants to naturally emerge is also just such a beautiful part of dialogue that can inspire this new way of less of our preordained, preconceived notions and just allow the natural emergence to come online. And yeah, it's slightly edgy, right? Even in the moments of, for instance, that format of the circle singing, to go in the middle and let yourself like fully get empty.
Yeah.
Take a breath right there and see what wants to come up. Just that alone, that process of emptying out so that we're not so full of ourselves anymore and have some spaciousness for creator to speak through and to listen. Wow. Just that presencing with us right here, right now, and that opportunity to tune into that subtlety, that subtle pulsation is just, that is medicine in itself that we're kind of being pulled towards away. And that, as you said, some of the words generated and this AI world of so much overstimulate. When you tune into it, it's not bringing that stillness of presence. It's definitely invoking more like, oh, what more can I grasp? What more can I go outside for? So I think this is the human heart coming through. We have the potential to invoke that, to tune into that, to go on the inside of the inside and be like, what wants to come from here now into a coherent space? Coherence. Yeah, it feels very important, like a very important word.
It's so important because coherence, of course, can only happen in the moment. I'm not saying it's time bound. I think I'm actually saying the opposite. But it happens now.
Yeah.
So when you come into conversation, dialogue, interaction of any kind, whether you're expressing through your voice or just through your body, through your attention, through your presence, when you come with all these prefabricated patterns, these beliefs, these structures, these held onto ideas of who you are and who you're supposed to be and how things are supposed to be, you feel that, you feel that from people. And there's like a lifeless quality to it. And it's not judgment toward them. I can totally understand why you would get caught in that way, in that mode, but at the same rate, it feels like lifeless, and it can feel draining, when you're in a conversation with someone and you kind of know what they're going to say because they're like reading from a script.
Right,
And
right.
it just feels like it drains the life force out of me in that moment. And I'm kind of looking for my exit, you know, and I don't
Yeah,
want that. Right.
totally, totally. Yeah, it speaks to that pulsation of that radical aliveness does require a little bit of what we can talk like authentic boundary breaking. Like how am I stepping out of the comfort zone just slightly? Any for me with the pulse of music and the voice, I can feel it. If someone's like, oh, just playing the song according to script, or oh, when they go into an improvisational state
Mm,
where they allow the flow to come to, I'm like, that's when it's God like take me, God. I feel just goosebumps all over just because I
mm,
sense the person is letting go and allowing just a more spaciousness to listen and to channel and to become and to tune, to fine tune as the conduit. And
mhm,
what is wanting to be spoken right now that is uniquely expressed through me and can only be expressed through me in this way. And yeah,
mhm.
when we talked about coherence, just it's a beautiful, that word holds so much, and it's also an acronym that allows for, it's already summing up a lot of these pieces we've talked about, including your poem. It spoke to so many of these pieces. So coherence, connection, openness, harmony, engagement, receptivity, emergence, gnosis, compassion, and empathy. And
Wow.
just, yeah, like I was allowing that to hold some space, and oh wow, that's what I'm that is a little bit of a focal point now. How do I create all those elements in a space of my own channel, feeling that coherent signal running through,
Mm.
allowing for all these moving pieces to be held? Okay, it's just when we spoke to coherence, it came back through.
Yeah, yeah. That acronym is incredible,
Yeah,
truly.
yeah,
Even I love the simplicity of it because what an incredible way to reorient yourself if you're feeling kind of thrashed around or
yeah,
uncertain or unsettled to just name those virtues and to feel them resonate in your interiority and to just allow them to kind of restructure whatever kind of unsettled anxietal state you're in.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then it literally those prayers, those words, those invocations literally bring you, I imagine, can more easily bring you into coherence.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. This
powerful.
this this benign, this life-giving loop, right? Where this is an utterance, and I it just when you're speaking of the self-regulation, it's just as simple as the out breath too.
Mm,
Uh, and letting those words simmer through us, just it's bringing back the voice of the ha, the breath of life, creating more attunements through our voice. How can I use the voice now, just receiving all of this information and this exchange that is already in this interplay right now,
mm,
using the voice to integrate that, because coherence really does require that first base, which is the spaciousness, to even just feel what is alive and present. So
mm, mhm,
creating a little bit more room, and the breath, that out breath,
mhm,
giving that, it's just, it felt natural for me, and it's once again invoking, how do I receive you deeper now from this moment, brother? Receive myself deeper.
mhm, mhm. And coherence really is it's an engagement with an active cultivation of mutual empowerment,
Mm,
you
mm,
know? And this is something I actually wanted to talk to you about is power.
yeah,
And I think that the connection to what we've already been speaking to, words, voice, um, interiority, and I would bring in soul and how it connects to real life affirming power,
yeah,
resonant power. And so I took some notes that I brought into today, um, and I want to just share a few things and then see what's there for us.
please, yes,
Um, so, as far as I'm understanding, true power comes from aligning with life force,
mm,
with
mm,
soul,
mm,
with heart. That power, when it's rooted and real, is not about control or domination. but about authenticity,
mm,
radical authenticity, and dynamic integrity.
mm,
And so I would call this soulful power. And like I said, I think it's inherently life affirming. I think it's inherently constructive and it's grounded. And it
mm,
helps us engage with life more meaningfully, as well, of course, to navigate complexity and paradox with
mm,
more strength and vitality.
mm, mm,
I also am seeing power as um, reflecting, because it's connected to soul and interiority, that it reflects one's deeper values and purpose.
mm,
And so, in that way, I think it's about creating a sense of vitality, but like
mm,
co creating that.
mm,
And
mm,
so, then, of course, connecting more deeply with our environment, being more responsive, as we were talking about before, rather than seeking um, control or even external influence, even seeking external success
right.
um, as connected to cultural values. And so then power allows us to face the inevitable challenges of life with more creative courage, contributing to life's growing beauty in a good way. So I'm wondering, what does true power look like for you, and how do you feel it show up in your life? And when you
Mm.
think about real power, that kind that's connected to soul,
Mm.
how do you imagine it? How do you tend it?
Wow. First off, this this play of opposites that you described and just this dynamic integrity when you spoke that, I really was like, wow, can it be this living, alive, pulsating power that is here? Oh, it's almost like outrageous love. It kind of is here to break the boundaries. And at the same time, it's so uniquely being expressed through each one of us. Right now, it's coming back to hmm, raw power for me feels deeply connected to my vulnerability. So how authentically true can I be willing? I feel the courage part, the courage piece seems so tied in with power. For me, it's the warrior is like this courage to just be authentically oneself no matter what. And I
Mm,
feel the power when someone is speaking their truth and
mm,
not from a way of proving, telling I'm wrong, you're right at all, but just
mm,
speaking their truth, knowing their worth.
mm,
Oof. But it's like
mm,
I'm there to listen because I'm
mm.
receiving their power and I'm humbly bowing to their power and also holding space for it. I feel that call, that summoning when someone is just radically, authentically in their truth and power
You know
and
what's
speaking.
incredible, brother? Just you explaining that,
Mm,
I actually just felt shivers go up my spine and into my shoulders and my throat and up
mm,
into the back of my head.
right.
Just explaining someone owning their power.
Oh, it's such a powerful phenomenon. We are these instruments of resonance, and when someone's owning it and claiming it and speaking from that, rather than once again, it really there is a such a fine line there, right? Between when I'm going to go into the ego game of wanting to kind of prove my point or
Mm,
yeah, any sort of manipulation of the external, but rather just a proclamation, intentionality connected to the power of the word.
mhm,
Oh, and the
mhm,
word being, yeah, the frequency of creation in motion. How do I tune to that? I feel that's a lot about power also, is just how am I attuned to what I'm uttering out? And
yeah.
so, yeah, it feels very aligned when I think there is a piece of body awareness that comes through when I think about power too, is how attuned are we to our physical vessel, our body temple, as most people you'll see when they're in their power and the expression of power is happening, there is this like dynamic responsiveness, dynamic integrity. When you said dynamic integrity, because it's not this static fixation on one point. No, we are moving, undulating between the point and the field, and there's this dance happening. So I feel power pulsating, magnetism in that way, and really this aliveness that is uniquely being expressed, and it does have this dance to it, once again this dance element.
Mhm,
And when I started by saying vulnerability, radical authentic vulnerability, and expressing those hard truths, expressing those places that we want to shy away from or turn away from in any way, when that is owned and that is spoken out into the field with that that deep acceptance and that fullness of presence, once again, I genuinely just feel power in that, even in the pieces that we consider to be the most meek and weak within us. So
Mm.
that's a beautiful paradox there that I just sense through my brothers and sister when they own it and they're like, no, no, this is beautiful too. I see this even, and speaking with that shaken, cracking voice. I'm like,
Mm.
wow, there's so much power. Thank you for sharing that and
Mhm.
reflecting to me. I encouraging me too to speak these hard truths and speak up my pieces that I consider that I have shame around, that I have any sort of neglect
Mhm.
still
Yeah.
present.
One of the most profound performances I've ever seen, it wasn't live, it was a recording of this woman that I know from Salt Spring Island in Canada. And it was during the Fairy Creek movement, and they were recording videos as a way to bring awareness through people's artistry to what was happening there. And it was just her and a guitar in
Mm,
a mossy forest by a
mm,
stream, and
mm-hmm.
she just laid it out, dude. Her voice was cracking, like you're saying. There was like tears coming to her eyes.
Oh
Like
my
from a
God.
from a technical perspective, you would think like, oh, that wasn't very good, right? Because she was off and was like out of tune and all these things. But the resonance, the soul, the power in it, dude. I watched it multiple times and I was shook to my core.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
No, it's such a beautiful unfolding that can happen there, and I've been blessed, I would say, to be with people in activating our voices and in the field often upon like first glance, and it can feel like there's a lot of dissonance when we start to bring voices together. Sometimes, like you said, key, pitch, all these things. And someone who has a fine-tuned ear, who I've been in this world, it's just oftentimes there can be a restriction or a start to have this contraction of the body. And in it's been a beautiful experiment to see that dissonance is just right there on the opposite, like just such a thin veil between resonant space. But there
Mm,
needs to be an allowance, right, for the dissonant parts to be there and like
mm,
just feel a little bit of the cringe, feel a little bit of that space, and then
mm,
keep holding the awareness, keep holding the fullness of presence, that desire to be on the inside with them, and
mm,
just tuning into that. Oh, can I feel oh, can I feel that inside part? And then the allowance that emerge, I've just seen such beautiful states of harmonic resonance come out with from what initially felt like a dissonance that could never be overcome. And I'm just very, yeah, it's speaking to the rawness and this field of this play of opposites once again that is there. And wow, thank you to each one on this journey of so much telling us to be perfect in this and that way, just stepping out of our own way and being like, no, my authenticity and my radical aliveness that wants to come through my voice. And I'm going to bring it back to the voice, those who are sharing their voice in whatever spoken word, song, poetry, artistry, in whatever form that comes through them, just giving thanks, because that's what continues to inspire me on my journey.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, me too. Yeah, it's really about coming coming into the mangled middle.
Mm,
Let me explain that. It's like
mm,
the mature person, the tempered soul is one that can be with paradox.
yes.
But it's like, and I don't know if this is the truth, but this is how I'm seeing it right now. It's as if when you can be with paradox with greater courage, integrity, and care over time, that those
Mm,
paradoxes that can seem so far from each other, actually they come close. They come close, and it's the creative edge is actually in that mangled middle of where um, they
mm.
kind of touch and interact and dance with each other, you know. Uh, and so oh, I had another thought there. Maybe I'll just pass that over to you. What does that stimulate?
whole consciously. And first there has to be, this is, I think this is the natural fiber of the universe, is this tension of opposites. And
Mm,
this, and I think there, when we bring the consciousness to the play within us
mm,
and all around us, just the awareness piece, and like, oh, okay, that piece, maybe that also, within every ruin holds a treasure. Oh, maybe here where I'm seeing that is the devastation. What can I see there? And just bringing that awareness piece ultimately just helps me be part of that natural tapestry, which is the universe, which is the love story of the universe. I
mm,
feel there's play. And have sensed it in myself. When I talked to when I said consciously holding the tension of opposites, I think of a lot of the spiral movements that I'm deeply studying within myself, but how I move the body. And there's just so much there, wisdom with soma, wisdom of the body, when we tune into that, the nature of reality that is present, pulsating within us. How can I see that my opposites connect in these spiral like fibers,
mm,
actually interconnected, and learn to move, just consciously move through my day more. Oh, my left and my right, they're playing this pull and pull, this push and pull in this beautiful way that can create actually so much inner stability. It's
mhm,
there for the stability. It's, if we can tune into it, we're creating this inner stability and this resilience, as you said, to be able to watch the changing tides and still hold the fulcrum and still hold that center point.
mhm.
So
Yeah, that's learning to balance, really. It's the middle path that Buddha speaks to, is what that is, I think. And it's so important. And I want to talk a bit more about power, and I specifically want to talk about power and its relationship with violence.
mm,
Because, well, as you know, I do counsel work with folks, and I work with men often, and I work with couples. And violence, which has this huge spectrum, of course, tends to be fairly common. I
mm,
grew up in a violent home uh, as a young one, and so I saw how power through voice, through
mm,
embodiment, and through action can
mm,
become, when it's repressed,
right.
when it's not tended to in with fullness, with
Yeah.
real honoring, that it then acts out in these harmful ways. And so I was learning about how violence actually is connected to a root word, vis. I think that's how you pronounce it, vis or vis, and it's Latin. And this vis word actually means life force.
Mm,
So this is this kind of primal energy that
right.
drives action and engagement with the world. So it's this kind of power that's neither good nor bad, but it's
Right.
vital for constructively, creatively taking action in the world. And so, of
Woo.
course, when this life force is misguided, it can or misdirected or not paid attention to enough, not purposely tended to, not related to
Mm,
with consciousness and care, then it can become misdirected, it can become repressed, and then it can manifest as violence, either physical, emotional, or psychological. So violence is kind of like the uncontained destructive expression of of this of this
right.
life force energy.
Right.
And so I'm so curious about talking about this with you because
Yeah.
you're very embodied, you're very powerful in your body, in your soma, in your voice, in your expression, in your presence. And I'm sure in your life there have been moments where you've been violent with it, either to yourself or to others.
Mm,
And I'm sure there have been many more where you've been tempted. I know that's certainly the case for me. And so I
mm,
just want to like wade out into these waters of getting real honest around how we tend to this capacity for violence within, and how to utilize it, transmute it, transform it into a more life-affirming power.
mm. Thank you so much for bringing this point online. I feel it is, as talking about the emergence of a new masculine and a new way of being with this energy that has, as you said, just been so distorted, repressed. I'm gonna say exiled also, just exiled fully. Like, no, 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 I can't feel it.
Yeah.
There's a tendency to just become so inverted, whether we're conscious of it or not. There's been a lot of the self-hatred that I can just speak to on my own journey. It's been very powerful. It's been the fuel from my journey has been going into the self-hatred and realizing, oh, Zoe, speaking to myself. I give myself another outlet. No, I don't want to put this on myself. I deserve to find another way to express, to move this energy that is this rawness of being, this rawness of aliveness. It wants to move, it wants to pulsate. Why have I told myself that it's so wrong, so unacceptable that I just continuously need to pour it on myself and tell myself I'm so wrong for having it, putting it in this double exile. It's like wrong for having it, and then I'm wrong for feeling it.
Yeah.
And it's such a, when you speak to it, I have chicken skin and also this like desire to move it because I want. It's been such a journey of reclamation for me, brother. It's been such, when I'm in the deepest moments of one of my, yeah, we all have our specific frequencies of the shadow that we work with. A big one for me is inertia and this stagnation that can start to become feeling overwhelming, like I am dying, like I'm at the verge of like, I don't know, how do I move any of this right now? I'm just gonna stay stuck. And those are the moments that with the support of a dear brother of mine, I've come into this place of, okay, now it's time, and I initiate myself in a rage ceremony. I set an altar, I light a candle, light an incense, and I play some drums or whatever. I play the music, I set the scene, I create the scene, the environment conducive for this inward dive, and I allow that rage to move through me, to go to that depth and just see where it wants to take me. No agenda, but just allow that vital life force to move, to release, to allow the compulsions to happen. And it's been one of the most powerful tools that I've found for my own. Ultimately, what I've seen is just back to that freedom of spaciousness afterwards. Once I move through the waves, ultimately realizing a lot of the time under that rage and so much of that energy is just me sobbing and feeling a depth of sadness that I cannot even understand. It's just I go to this well within me that just wants to be, tears want to come and all of that. And with that said, these rage ceremonies have just given me a new perspective on exactly that essence that you touched, which is this is so much power and so much life force, energy, electricity that just wants to have more space in my soma. It wants to have more spaciousness to be felt, and yeah, go to that repression is a conscious space for it to be held, and I'm still envisioning ways that I can do that more consciously with other brothers as well. To witness and experience each other's rage in face to face, whatever that looks like, different ways to hold a container for that. And right now it's been just a deep dive inward to create the conscious space holding for myself. And it's just been so, such a liberation. And I'm very, very grateful for this practice. Yeah. So.
I'm reminded of when I think I was 9, I must have been 20, and it was this important, or maybe I was like 21. It was this important time in my life because I was really coming into a deeper awareness of my heart's capacity to feel. I was beginning to sense soul in a more conscious way. I was exploring teachings and teachers that were really like beginning to open my perception and help me shift old patterns and programs that I just was conditioned into. And part of that was, and I think this happens with many folks, and some people get caught in it, part of the way in which I navigated it is that I started to turn toward the light, so to say,
Yeah.
in this kind of compulsive way. And so everything was about cultivating this sense of light and lightness and beauty and grace. And that's all important, right? But at the same rate, because of the life I'd lived up until then, I had a lot of pain, I had a lot of trauma. And not too long before that, I was in a deep, deep depression. It wasn't my first, but it was the deepest. And I was actually suicidal for a time. And I felt so beyond fucked up, like I felt irreparable, irredeemable. But I had come out of that. But I didn't really, I came out of it through turning toward the light. You know what I mean? And
Totally.
so it saved me, and I'm so grateful. And at the same rate, it was kind of like a moth that
Mm,
is always just going toward the light, right? And so there's this denial of like, actually, there's more landscape out in the dark, and there's
yeah.
more life out in the dark. If you just turn away from the light and go out there and trust that you can make it, that you're actually going to become more whole. And so
Mm,
this is all kind of preamble to say, you reminded me that I went out and I went backcountry camping with some friends, and we took some mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, and I started to become quite high, and all of us started to feel kind of weird. I started to feel a bit disoriented and strange, and then I felt this like deep upwelling of confusion, and then it
yeah.
turned to anger, and then it
Yeah.
turned to rage. And what I did, kind of without even really knowing what I was doing, is I grabbed the axe that we had, and I went to an old rotted tree that was being like taken into the earth, and I
Mm,
just went so hard on just smashing this rotting tree into
mm,
mush. And I went until I was like dangerously slipping
right.
everywhere and sweating and crying. And
Yeah.
then eventually I came back to out of this trance of sorts, and I looked, and the tree was just mush, and I'm a sweaty mess of tears. And but there was this liberation.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I had connected with a part of myself that had been repressed for so long. And it's 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 like, I guess that's what it gets to when you repress it. Like, it doesn't have to be that,
Right.
right? But when you hold it down in the dark for so long, it either comes out in your relationships, and typically for men toward the feminine, right? Which is what I grew up with. Um, and it's what I've witnessed and heard about in so many dynamics.
Yeah.
But for me, I knew I would never do that in that way because of how I was grow up. And so I
Right.
repressed it. And so it came out like that, thankfully. And since then, it's been this like tender courting,
Yeah.
that part of myself. Um,
Mm,
these days, I tend to it through mostly through intense exercise and
mm,
like
yeah.
kettlebell session,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, just hitting the kettlebells like a savage, or running and swimming until you're out of breath. Like, I find that tends to be, if I have a continual pulse of that in my life,
Yeah.
that seems to be enough. Though I
Yeah.
would love to have like a heavy bag and some like martial arts and some like wrestling with brothers
Mm,
more consistent in my life.
same, bro. So let's do it. Let's find because
I gotta get over to Maui, brother.
we gotta have that time together. And yeah, nothing like it, right? The liberation and the realizing, oh, wow, this is where all the energy was. Also locked up. So it's been locked up. And
Mm.
so this renewal that can be sensed after one of those experiences. And that is a can be a long, like in my case of those bigger, what I was mentioning, these rage ceremonies, they catapulted me to new chapters of my life. The bigger ones that
Mm.
I've done have been those that choice point. I'm doing this, and they've sent me an catapulted, once again, that's the only word that I, because they really renewed me and gave me this new vision, like, oh wow, this is a new way to be with myself. And as you're talking about whatever the practices can be, I see there's a lot there with the voice,
Mm.
So it's coming back, it's tying back the voice. For me, my personal journey was actually age 13. I was in a screamo band. So I was like in that
Okay.
rebellious teenager age, and that was my first like entrance. I was like
Wow.
raging on stage. I was screaming and
Mm.
letting those vocal cords be kind of torn, and it was a whole process. I actually did end up damaging and like had a whole thing of shame and repression of my voice after that, because I was told that I was shit by these, you know, adolescents, boys in a band, all telling me talking shit. And that really pushed me away from music for a long time in my voice. And ultimately, I am finding that the research, this reemergence, has all in this moment. It's like finding that again. And when the anger can, or whatever the emotion is, but anger has this thing through the voice too, of that being expressed. It's something that can touch anyone. It's shocking, but it's shocking us into the presence as well, into that
Mm.
aliveness. So that also.
Especially when it's rooted in radical responsibility and containment, like
Yes,
not
yes,
contained as in like holding back, but that you feel that that person is holding it themselves and they're not putting it onto you.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So all those practices, I think, and more dialogue around these practices, and inviting other brothers and individuals, you know, sisters as well. We all have that energy, that rage to move, but understanding it as combustion fuel for our journey ahead.
Mm.
Wow, shifting the perspective there.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
yeah.
Beautiful, man. I've been loving this conversation, and I want to take a turn, and I don't know what that is. I want to give it to you, and I feel like asking, what is something that you're really working with lately? You know, be mind what you feel safe to share in this kind of public space, right? I don't want to dig into something that is, you know, not good to dig into, but something that you feel is important, um, and necessary for you to be really putting conscious attention toward in your life, in your development, in your growing understanding of self and world and other. And yeah, I'd love to just hear what's alive for you in that way, and see what comes up for us in that sharing.
Okay, beautiful. Mm. The path is winding and the path has so many turns. And right now, the intersection that I've been fine-tuning my AI, right? The inner AI, I call it that, attention and intention. I've been really going into the attention focused on this new, yeah, this integrative path as we've been talking about. And right now it's just the full fulcrum is how can I meet, as you said, I've been on this deep journey of the ascending path and focused on the solar, focused on the divine light with me in me, and now it's integrating that ascending with a descending path. And it's not going to one end or other, but it's, can I really integrate them within me and
Mm,
simultaneously integrate the field and the point, and come more on the horizontal also, and finding this meeting ground within me. And so much of that happens in my core center. It's hard for me, but there I've been in deep of like, how can I understand this pulsating core within me in a whole new way? Yes, I've been deep in the study of the anatomy, the multi-layered fascials of the core musculature, how it's like this sacred architecture. And now I'm like, what is at my core? And so what
mhm,
has been presented in studies that are affirming this core of cores is this black hole, is this darkness that I orbit that connects me to everything. And
mm,
it's not so much more of going anywhere, but just, can I get into this deeper state of listening? So I'm okay when I can, I'm just tuning back into what feels vibrating from my core. And it's very much a lot of the focus of my movements, be it my physical practice or just how I'm moving from the world. Can I move from that uh, proximal to distal? It's just understanding that we're pulsating from the inside out, all to our limbs even, and how I'm moving in my day to day. How connected can I stay to my diaphragm? Understanding this this deep front line, which is the deeper layer of the myofascia that has us just connecting to our breath as well. And so I would say that's been just honing these keys for myself, that one day, yeah, as I continue to understand how these integrative practice are best shared, right? But right now it's just been, what is this core essence that I'm refining? I'm going back, and it's so multi-layered to the point it's realizing, like, at the core is the mystery. And so I'm just more attuned to this state of listening these days. and
Mm,
and right now it's just it's so beautiful, because it's we've talked about it, me and you, Tay, is this going from all this complexity to then it being distilled in the simplicity. And
mm,
so for me, that's the study of my voice in these simple ways. I was just on a 4-day camping trip with some of my best friends in the world and my beloved. And we ended up naturally being gravitating and finding all these caves and
mm,
going inward so much into the core of the core, the void, the womb of the mother. And what would after a little bit of silence and a little bit of, like, oh, just awe of the quietness and that inner peace, what would naturally emerge? Us chanting, uttering, finding our core, like through this vocal expression. So for me, there is this, it was just this beautiful, these rituals of resonance would just naturally arise as we're in these caves. And talk about endogenous DMT. I'm not sure, but we would leave these caves so alive, just
mm,
vibrant aliveness. And it was me just realizing, oh, at the core of the core, there's this desire, this core just constant wants to be expressed through my voice. And then that's gone taken me to studying the sensory cortex of the brain, and actually seeing that on a anthro-ontological, on a felt sense level, our abdominal viscera is right by our larynx, so the core musculature. And as we tune into our core, our voice just naturally starts to express more, feel more safe to be expressed too.
mm,
So
mm,
I continue to just understand nuances there, and just, okay, um, how I can continue to bridge Manipura chakra, our seat of our willpower and our personal power, with our vocal expression, our communication. And just this, it seems to be a dance that I'm just, like, fascinated with. I, like, tip of the iceberg. As deep as I go, I'm like, oh wow, there's so many maps pointing to this. And right now I'm in that deep study within my own soma, and being grateful to be able to guide people as I do in my own internal study of the revelations and what's coming up. And yeah, just to bring back that piece of being in that cave, and coming back to these simple rituals of resonance in our lives, and how can I use that moment, and now this deep imagery I have of the cave, and bring it into my day, where I create my cocoon, from which I then step out with a deeper fullness of presence connected to my core essence.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
Well, man, thank you for sharing all that. I had this. Well, first I thought of what I've been learning about womb cosmology,
yeah,
and then when you mentioned the cave, I thought about um, our our ancestors, our human ancestors, and how so there's so many incredible archaeological, anthropological sites around the world, deep within caves, some
yeah,
of them incredibly deep, where there's these miraculous art pieces that are tens of thousands of years old. And I was just thinking about how our ancestors must have been connected into the womb, into the fertile dark, balanced masculine, feminine in some kind of way to hold those caves as so sacred, and to use them as these pregnant spaces for artistic and soulful expression. And a lot of archaeologists and anthropologists think that they did ceremony and ritual in there. And of course, um, shamanism tends to use, like, in guided visual journeying experiences, there's this kind of worldwide phenomena where shamans use the entrance into a cave through the visual journey in order to actually go within into that deeper archetypal mythic listening space where you might retrieve yourself, your soul, your expression, bring back parts of you that have been lost. So just all these ideas stimulated for me, and I'm thinking how important it is, and how I can hear your, really it's this orientation that you have toward reconnecting with your feminine, is what
Mm.
I'm hearing, and bringing it into balance, and how you can feel, I can hear in the way you're expressing, you can feel that when you take outward motion, when you take steps, and when you take action and direction, and it's coming more from that deeper, darker listening space, that your actions then feel more aligned, they feel more constructive and creative and caring for your life and the many others you're surrounded by.
Yes, brother. Yes, brother. Truth, and it's seasonal, right? I've just been in this dance because I was just in another phase just before entering this moment of returning to Maui, which represents so much of the womb for me. It's my family home and the place I've, over 12 years of just different cycles, and it's held me through this whole my entire blossoming and transformation. And just before this, it was just very much it was another orientation. So attunement takes this constant opportunity to reevaluate and not sticking, oh, now I need to be more on my masculine or feminine. It's just allow, it's
Yeah.
like, it's truly that dance piece just keeps coming back. And right now I do feel like, wow, this deeper spaciousness for the listening is now the pieces are feeling like they can really come from that dynamic integrity once again,
Mhm,
because it's
mhm,
moving,
mhm,
it's alive, and I'm like, oh wow, now I feel the alignment that I can't. I'm a passionate seeker too. If the passion's not there for me, I know there's some part of my core essence that's offline. So I've just been allowing these different pieces to kind of dissolve, and now that the passion and that sense of, wow, this fiery nature too, very connected also to the rescuing through the rage ceremony and allowing that energy to fuel,
mhm.
it's now feeling like, oh yeah, that void has given space, and I can move forward with just more of that clarity and like that oomph behind it too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I, in my understanding, passion often comes with relative ease
Yeah.
when we allow the soul to speak.
Yeah.
It stirs when we're close to what matters, when we
Yes.
give ourselves to beauty, to depth, to the things that move us naturally.
Yeah.
And in that way, it's not something to seek, or to hunt down. I think that like our passion arrives like a guest when the conditions are right.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been noticing that a lot in this season of my life, is that the conditions I've tended to the conditions and to the setting, to the environment, to inner and outer enough to feel this upsurge of passion and vitality in my life, specifically in my creativity, and I'm just grateful for that and honoring that. But I think it's so important to speak to, because again, working with clients, passion comes up as an inquiry often.
Right.
People kind of equate passion with purpose, and
Yeah.
although I think they're probably sisters, I don't think they're equal. I think they have their very own kind of space that they hold within our psyche. And I think it really matters to speak to, because you can feel a lot of passion and not be clear on your purpose. And you can be clear on what you think is your purpose, and maybe it is, and not feel the passion. And so I'm
Right.
just wondering, in this,
Right.
as it arises,
Yeah.
how do you notice that in your life as you're speaking to it?
Right. No, it's really interesting what you just spoke to, and it actually reframes the question for me internally, because I realize that yes, what you're speaking to is is spot on, because there's often these surges of energy that can move through the system. Take act now, and there's a little bit of a freneticness or a franticness around it, right? And that it's kind of maybe reacting on some level to this societal input and the stimulus once again, like, oh yeah, let's keep going, let's go, or be highly all these different ways that we can be on this search for more, and add more and more. And so I just to have the discernment within to look, oh, where's my passion coming from? Is it rooted back to the space of the in between, the spaciousness that we just started with? Did I take a moment of silence to just take a breath? And is this passion still alive after that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like that slight discernment there where I can, okay, yeah. And so I think I try to take those pauses in between my motions to just allow the passion to stir and just orient me a little more towards the north node there. Because I
Yeah.
feel if that we have that attunement to the in between and that element of music of the space, I'm
Mm-hmm.
listening, I'm responding, react rather than the reaction. I think then the passion can be more of a guide rather than this urge to move with what the collective unconscious, how that's unfolding.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as I know, passion is connected to, like, it originally is connected to suffering, right?
Mm,
Passion of the Christ, the
mm,
suffering of the Christ. And so, but it's this kind of sacrificial, the way
mm,
I feel into it is like this sacrificial suffering, which is this willingness to wade out into the mystery, the uncertainty, the uncomfortable, in order to bring back or connect with something that's alive and vital that might
right,
be terrifying. And I
right,
I notice that when I do connect with that thing I just described, that my
right,
passion does upsurge, and it
totally,
feels more like pure than when I'm in kind of like mental seeking of success, striving for ideals. That kind of passion seems to be not rooted in this kind of sacrificial suffering, but in this more kind of idealistic loftiness. I, I'm just kind of thinking of this now, so I'm not even sure if I'm making sense, but it
no.
makes sense to me.
what it, what it brings online for me when you share that is the road is uniquely ours to walk. We have
Yeah.
to, it's this it's this staying attuned to the fact that our passions are the true core passion, whatever that is for us. I'm also not going to say there is one, but when we're ignited by this like inspiration to move, ultimately if we do keep following it to our the best of our ability, I've found we also have to let go of our desire to control the outcomes and how that's going to look. It's going to naturally disintegrate our belief systems and force us to come face to face with those limiting beliefs that have us playing small in any way. And it's naturally going to force us to also just break barriers, yeah, once again, of how we think it ought to look, what
Mhm.
our following our passion looks like. So
Mhm.
that aspect of the passion, of that it's actually like this breaking the barriers, once again, this expression of outrageous love that doesn't want to be contained. I think
Mhm.
that has a face that is not understood. We think oh, that should feel good, that should feel really good. And so that's a part
Mhm.
of the passion that comes online for me when you share that, is it's unorthodox in
Mhm.
that sense, and being really attuned to the point. It's going to go to some of those deep core beliefs, and force and invite in a kind of sometimes abrupt way, force that evaluation and that deep introspection.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, speaking to that feels important.
Yeah. Everything we spoke to feels important, man. Thank you so much for just being in the improvisation with me.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I really value our connection and our conversations. I always feel very deeply nourished and nurtured and attended to. And I feel myself at the creative and innovative edge. I find myself listening more deeply. I feel more embodied. And so thank you for being you, man.
Mm. So mutual, and that's why I feel we come together with certain souls, as I've expressed with you, my brother, where we feel safe enough to fully come online, which is that sense of living, of being at the edge and okay, not too much because we're not trying to push each other out, but we're just in that place of that dance. And it's such a gift. I just want to speak to the gift that it is to find a
Yeah.
brother and to find that safe space where we can do this and sharpen each other's swords, and at the same time it be so receptive. I feel so received in your presence. Likewise, I feel so deeply held. It's just a beautiful play of opposites that I'm in awe of, and witnessing it start to show up in the specific seeds of relationship that I water right now. I'm like, oh, there is this new emergence happening where we can hold it all together. And this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be. More and more life, more blessings, more of this dialogue that can really create space for this new emergence that we don't even really know. That's what I'm constantly coming back to. I'm listening to some people talk about their expertise in all these different facets and areas of life, and I'm like, do we really know anything? I'm just like, I'm more inviting the gnosis of like, oh, the gnosis that comes from nothing, the gnosis that can come from us just creating a little more space to just witness you, witness me, my brother, and just be like, oh, in this presence, I don't need to think about that. I can just allow. And that permission slip, we don't often give ourselves that permission slip. So in the presence of another who is cultivating that on a daily basis, I feel full permission. And it's something very special.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, thank you for your words.
Mm.
So yeah, we're at the end, man. Let's tie it up. Direct people to anything you want to direct them to, your offerings, or if you have things going on in the coming, days, weeks, months. Of course, you and I are collaborating for Rise and Revitalize, which I'm going to be talking about at different times, so we don't need to talk about that. But you are one of the speakers, which is really exciting. But what else is going on in your life that might feel important to let people know about?
Beautiful. So yeah, as of now, in terms of the platforms, my Instagram is definitely where I'm putting a lot of my more updated offerings, and that's Zoflow. And then, in addition to that, zoflow.co is where I have my website and an opportunity to work one-on-one, that be online or in person if you are here in Hawaii. And I've also started and launching this business, which is about to come out with online course, a mentorship called Core Voice Integration. And corevoiceintegration.com is also this new website that is being launched. Right now, it's a free resource guide that is being offered there, and I can get your information there, and we can stay connected. So yeah, Instagram right now is the most updated because things are in pulsing right now, and I'm very excited to be part of this day and this emergence and this summit to share more. And it's very much just uniting my passion for the body and personal training, massage therapist as well, uniting all of this now with the voice of how this. I've been a musician ever since I can remember, and deep in the I'm going to call it sound meditation, because it's just been an opportunity to support people understanding how our sound is just such an opportunity to fine tune the instrument, create, once again, back to those signals of coherence through the body. And so core voice integration was the emergence of this new model and this new approach to a holistic way to train the body and voice together.
I have no notes that it's profound. Yeah.
And much to come. It's such a beautiful place to be right now, to be in that deeper listening. And now this emergence is coming, and I'm excited to share. And my music, my Spotify, definitely have a good amount of music out on my Spotify profile under Zoe Kian. Much more new music to be released as well. So
yeah, and there'll be links to all that in the show notes, so people don't have to go searching.
Brother.
Cool, man. All right, well, bless your heart and your way.
Bless you, my brother. I look forward to our next conversation and staying connected. And thank you all for tuning in. This was a great joy and pleasure. Deep reverence for all that was cultivated here.